this week I'm sharing some of my favorite family style meals. If this sounds like something you'd be interested in, please give me a like and a subscribe. When I was growing up, I was one of those original latchkey kids. Anybody else? Yeah, so my parents both worked long hours. My dad usually got home before my mom, but Mom was the master at make-ahead meals that she could leave on the stove or in the oven for us to heat up. She always left a note telling us what to do, where it was, what to do with it, how to heat it up. So us kids or my dad could come home and just heat it up in the oven or the microwave. One of my favorite meals growing up were those little frozen pot pies. You know the ones? I thought they were great. It was the heyday of the 80s and frozen food was king for working families. Now, we all know now that frozen meals and takeout and fast food aren't so great for us. So I have a recipe for the classic pot pie that's a little bit healthier, but just as tasty. And this makes a great family meal. If you have a really large family, like when my boys were growing up, I would double this recipe and make it in a big casserole dish, a big rectangle 9x13 or larger casserole dish. But today I'm just going to make it just in a pie plate. You know, if it's just like just my husband and I, this will feed us tonight and for a couple of lunches. But if you have a larger family, just double the recipe and bake it in a rectangle pan or 2 pie plates. I would suggest a rectangle pan. That's just one less dish you have to do. If you're like me, you're probably pretty busy. You don't want to do extra dishes. So it's super simple. I'm making my own crust. Now, if you don't have time to make your own crust, that's perfectly fine. Go get one at the store. When my boys were growing up, my husband and I both were working, I bought store-bought pie crust pretty often. Or you can make a large batch, roll them out and put them in the freezer and have them ready to go whenever you're ready to bake. When you do it that way, they only take a few minutes to thaw out enough to be pliable and put in the pie plate. But this one is super easy and super healthy. So this is my go-to pastry crust these days. You can make it sweet or savory. And what I have in my bowl is just 3 cups of oat flour. I'm going to put a pinch of salt, probably a good ½ teaspoon. And for the fat, and you'll have to forgive me, you guys, I am a little bit under the weather. I have caught a bad cold. Which happens sometimes, not too often, but sometimes, you know. So if I sniffle, like, you know, if I sniffle or cough, I apologize. I'll try to edit that out if I can. So just stir in my salt, make a little well there. And for the fat, for the pie crust, I'm just using about 1/3 cup of tahini. Tahini makes a really good fat for pie crusts, cakes and baked goods. If you don't like tahini, by all means, just use some vegan butter or margarine. You can also use a little bit of coconut oil, but the amount is going to differ just slightly. So I'm just going to work this in until it's nice and crumbly, and then I'll add some ice cold water. Now, how much water is going to depend on how humid it is on the day that you make it, how humid your flour is. So once we get it to like a fine crumble, and you'll hear people say when they're describing how to make a pie crust that you want it to look like about pea-sized pieces for the fat to be incorporated there. So that's what we're going for. And I just have a fork here that I'm working it in with. You could do it with a pastry cutter or your hands. Okay, so it looks kind of like that. You can see that it's kind of like a large chunks of crumbles there. That's perfect. And I'll just start with probably about a 1/4 cup of ice water. And we'll work that in really good. And you'll see this pie crust comes together like really fast. So in just a few minutes, you can have a healthy homemade crust. And at this point, I'm going to just get in there with my hands, because that's the best way that you know it's going to stick together. You just want to work all that water into the fat, but you don't want to overwork it. Now, that's just because you want it to stay kind of cool. You don't want it to get too hot, or it's just going to be like a flat pie crust. But you don't have to worry too much about that with the oat flour as much as you do with, like, if you're using just regular all-purpose flour, which also works in this recipe. So whole wheat flour too. Feel free to sub that out for the oat flour. I'm just going with oat flour because that's what I have, and I think it makes a fantastic pie crust with the tahini, sweet or savory. It just makes a really rich, nice crust. All right, this is looking good after a few more turns. It'll be kind of shaggy, but that's okay. Just so long as it's sticking to itself and not the side of the bowl. So at this point, we just want to let it rest a little bit. So I'm just going to pop it on my parchment paper. And while I clean my bowl up, I'm just going to pop it in the refrigerator and let it rest, and then I'll roll it out. It's been about 10 minutes or so, so I am going to go ahead and try to roll this out. Just have a pastry cutter here, and I'm just going to chop it in half, so we'll have our top and our bottom pie crust. All right. And I just have a piece of parchment paper here that I'm rolling it out on, a piece of non-stick parchment. And that's just so I don't have to so I don't have to scrub my island top off, okay? Just roll it out. It rolls out just like a regular pie crust. And we want to roll it out to about an 1/8 to 1/4 inch thick. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. And the other ingredients I have to go inside of the pie are about 2½ cups of chickpeas. Now I cook these from dried, but you can also use just 2 cans of chickpeas is good. And 1 bag of frozen mixed veggies that I have added 1 diced russet potato to. And I have about 1/4 cup of cornstarch and 1/4 cup of soy milk. And you can use any kind of milk that you prefer. Anything works in here. Okay, that looks good. Just gonna roll this one right into our pie plate here. And if you have a little tear or whatever, it's no big deal. Nobody's gonna see that bottom part of the crust anyway. Just kind of patch it up there and it will be fine. I'm just gonna tear off the excess there. Put it right there and just go around real quick and crimp it down. Like I said, it's family dinner. It should look appetizing, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And trust me, if you have hungry kids or hungry husbands in the house, they're not going to care that it looks like the cover of, you know, Good Housekeeping or whatever, Food Network magazine. Sorry, Food Network. But they don't care. They just care that they have a hot meal. So there we are. We'll set that aside, and I'll go ahead and roll out the top crust to lay over the top, and then we'll just mix our other ingredients together. All right, I got the second one almost brown, so that works for me. So I'm just going to dump my chickpeas into the bowl here. Looks like I needed a bigger bowl. I run into that problem a lot. That's okay. I think we got it. I think this will work. I think we'll be all right. Okay. Just give those a little bit of a mix around. Get those chickpeas in there. And instead of chickpeas, if you wanted to use like some cubed tofu or soy curls would also be good, or TVP, textured vegetable protein. Those would all be good options too. Just if you're going to use soy curls, make sure you soak them in water first before you put them in here. All right, so as far as spices, see, I have my cornstarch there and my soy milk. And as far as spices, this is what's going in here that's going to make it taste like a classic pot pie. I have some thyme, some celery seed, some rosemary, some garlic powder and onion powder, some pepper, and we'll put a little bit of salt. So probably about a half teaspoon of salt. Frozen mixed veggies are not salted at all, so we want a good amount of salt in there. But if you're salt free and want to make it without salt, that's fine. But two things don't skip on. Do not skip on the celery seed and the thyme. Those are going to be your classic flavors that go into the pot pie. So whatever other spices you want to add or take away, that's fine, but don't skip those two. All right, we'll just get this mixed around really good. And that soy milk and cornstarch will mix with the water that the veggies release in there and make a nice creamy sauce, creamy gravy. Also, if you wanted to get really fancy and homemade with this, you could make a bechamel sauce or a roux on the stove with some flour, but this way is super quick and super easy, and it turns out just as good. So that's mixed together pretty nice there. We'll go ahead and fill our crust up. And while the dough was relaxing in the refrigerator, I preheated the oven to 350. So it's preheated and this is ready to go in. Now at this point, you could refrigerate this to pop in the oven later, or you could put the top dough on, cover it really well, and freeze it and cook it another day. Or if you're making a double batch, if you want to make 2 of them at a time, make one today and freeze one if you double the recipe. Okay, and this is a kind of a deep dish pie crust. If you're using the store-bought ones in the little foil tin, you'll probably need to use 2 of those. All right, that looks perfect. We'll just get our top crust on. Just like that. And just kind of crimp it down to seal the edges. That looks good. And the last thing you want to do before you put it in the oven is you want to poke a few vent holes in there so the steam can escape while the pie bakes. I'm just going to put like a little X in mine. I don't have any of those fancy little, I can't remember what they're called. Oh my goodness, I can't remember. Anyway, they come in like little shapes of little chickens or roosters or any kind of shape really, and you just stick them in the pie there. Mockingbirds I've seen. You stick them in the top of the pie, makes a little vent hole, and they're just cute. I can't remember what they're called though, so if you know, let me know. So this is going into the oven at 350 for about 35 to 40 minutes. All right, and here is our pie out of the oven, and Tony says he's very hungry, needs to eat some dinner, so we're going to cut into this. Now, after I took it out of the oven, I did let it rest for about 20 minutes, so it would set up nice and won't run all over your pie plate when you cut into it, and this looks like it came out just right. I think I could have done a better job at getting a slice out, but that will work. I can't wait to taste it. Look at that. It looks so good. Oh, it's hot. It's still very hot. This is a good one. I really hope you'll try it. I'll see you again tomorrow. So the next family style meal I want to share is French bread pizza. It was one of my favorites and my brother's favorites growing up, and it was one of the favorites for my kids when they were growing up too. And I think that is because it's so customizable. You can put whatever you want on a pizza, right? And who doesn't love pizza? So another thing about it is it's super affordable. I made this loaf of bread, just a basic loaf style bread. This is just organic flour, yeast, salt, and water. It's so easy to make. I made this loaf a couple of days ago, so it needs to be used up. But you can also find this type of loaf, either a French loaf or an Italian loaf, in the bakery section at the grocery store. Usually the ones they didn't sell the day before, the next day, they'll be really cheap. Like sometimes you can find them for like 99 cents. So it makes a really good affordable family meal. And I like to just put whatever veggies I have on top, but some of my favorites are always tomatoes, peppers, onion, mushroom, and olives. So that's what I have here. I have a little bit of fresh basil also, a little bit of fresh spinach, and I have some little vegan sausage balls that I made, and I'll link the video of the recipe that I used to make the vegan sausage. It's super easy, just a few ingredients in that, and I had some left over, so I decided I'd go ahead and throw it on my pizza. And I've also got some cashews soaking to make a cheese sauce. Now you can just use a regular vegan cheese, a store-bought vegan mozzarella will be fine, or you can make some of the other types of mozzarellas that I've seen people use with tofu and cornstarch, but you have to cook those, and really I'm just not that patient. Like if I were going to do a big batch of it, maybe then, but I just am doing an easy pizza tonight. So keeping it simple. And the first thing I'm going to do is I just have some regular tomato sauce here, and I'm just going to add some seasoning to it for our pizza sauce. And I have garlic powder, onion powder, some dried Italian seasoning, and some crushed red pepper. I'm just going to add those into my tomato sauce with a little bit of salt. Salt is optional. You can keep this salt-free if you like. It's already oil-free, so if you're oil and salt-free, you can keep it salt-free. It will still be delicious. So I'm just going to give that a little bit of a stir. And just kind of let that hang out while I chop all of my beautiful veggies here, which should only take just a couple minutes. All right, sliced up my bread, and you might notice it's a big chunk gone. I had to tear off a piece and check the sauce. It's great. So while I chop my veggies, I've got my spinach chopped here, a couple of mushrooms already chopped, and I've just kind of crumbled up the sausages there. And you'll have to forgive me, I'm still battling this cold. It's like just hanging on and not going away. So I think after dinner tonight, I'm going to go hit the sauna for a session with some probably eucalyptus and bergamot. If you have any other remedies you could offer to help out for these lingering colds, let me know. Definitely let me know. Okay, so just while I'm chopping here, I just wanted to say, get this beautiful, look at this guy. This is a Black Beauty bell pepper from out of the garden. They're just gorgeous, really tasty too. My red bell peppers, that plant is kind of struggling, but still tasty. So we're gonna cut him up too, and a couple of yellow guys. But I just wanted to say, you know, pizza gets a really bad rap as a family meal, and a lot of people consider it to be junk food. And if you're buying it from most big pizza chains, it is, right? It's not really all that healthy for you. But it can be an extremely healthy dinner for the whole family. You can load up on veggies in the pizza. You can sneak in veggies in the crust and in the cheese sauce. One thing I wanted to say is, one thing that's super easy to sneak in some nutrients in a vegan cheese sauce like this is to add a little bit of either squash or pumpkin puree or cooked cauliflower. And you can blend that up in the cheese sauce, and that's one way to get a little bit of sneaky veggies in. But I found when the boys were little, putting on some spinach, some artichoke, some extra tomatoes, bell peppers, high in vitamin C, you know, those things are all really good for you. And just watch out for the cheese sauce and the type of crust that you use. This one, like I said, is oil-free, but you'll find a lot of pre-made pizza crust and a lot of the raw pizza doughs. Most of them have a good amount of oil in them. So if you can find one that's oil-free, or maybe just even use a cauliflower crust, that's a great way to get some veggies in your kiddos and your non-veggie loving spouses too, family members. Okay, I have all my fresh veggies chopped. They all look beautiful. I'm just going to start building my pizza. Start with a little bit of the sauce, and I may or may not use all of this, but I can just pop a lid on my little mason jar here and put it in the refrigerator and use it for another meal later in the week. All right, that looks good. Not too much sauce, not too much sauce. We do have a little bit left over, so we'll just set that right there so it doesn't make a mess all over the island top. Spread that around. Oh, this is going to be good. And I like to get it all the way to the edge because I like it when that sauce turns kind of caramelized around the edge of the pizza. Oh, it's so good. Okay, spread that around. All right, so good. Okay, and we will start loading on the veggies. And I'm going to start with a little bit of our fresh basil there, here and there, which I have just torn into pieces. And I'll save a little bit of it for after the pizza bakes. Throw a little bit of the fresh basil on top. All right, that looks good. Go in with our chunks of tomato. And I just have a few different kinds of tomato here out of the garden. Aromas are good, little sweet cherry ones. This is just a mix of what I had that was ripe. So use whatever tomatoes you have or leave them out, it's optional. But to me, a really good pizza has to have a lot of fresh tomato. One of my favorite toppings. Fresh tomato and black olive, two of my favorites. I love that supreme pizza vibe that you get when you get the olives and the onion and the peppers and tomatoes. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with a classic cheese and basil and tomato pizza, but I love a supreme pizza. I always have, even as a kid, which is kind of strange, but that's it. Okay, and I'll go in with some of my spinach. So I don't want it to like get burnt if it's on the top, so the tomatoes will keep that spinach nice and juicy. Just load that baby down. And some of our bell peppers, some of the black beauty bell pepper, some of the red, oh, this is going to be a beautiful, beautiful pizza. I can tell already it's going to be delicious. All right, and we'll put the yellow ones around, kind of make it look a little pretty there. It's gotta look pretty too, right? Put those all around there. Okay, and load it down with our, let's go with our onions next. Sorry about the sniffles. I'm trying here, I'm trying. So onions. Okay, and Mr. Tony said he would prefer not to have the vegan sausage, and that's okay. That's all right. So we won't put any on his. We'll just put all the vegan sausages on one pizza. Oh, this is gonna be so good. This looks like it might be enough for 2 meals for me, but we will see. We'll see about that. We'll see about that, okay? And mushrooms. Load it down with mushrooms. Tony and I both really love mushrooms, so we'll load that down. Mushrooms, another superfood, really good for you. I try to eat as many mushrooms as I can. I even drink them. I like the mushroom coffee replacements. Some of them are really, really tasty. Really good for you. Really good for anti-inflammatory and hormone balancing, so try to get them in as often as I can. Plus they're tasty. I have yet to meet a mushroom that I did not like. Okay, that looks good. All right, let's get some olives on here. A little bit of that olive brine. Pile those on. This is going to be so super tasty. All right, and I have preheated my oven to 375. A little bit lower of a temperature just because it's such a big fat pizza. We want to make sure it gets like heated through to the middle. So we'll see at the end. I might turn the broiler on and broil it for a minute, but we'll see what it looks like. I want to make sure everybody has a chance to at least get warm. I don't need it to be like, you know, burnt to a crisp or cooked to death. I just want it heated through. So I'm going to pop it in the oven and we'll see how long it takes at 375, probably about 15 minutes or so. So for my cheese sauce, I just have added to the soaking liquid for the cashews, just 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. I'm also adding 2 cloves of garlic and a little bit of nutritional yeast, which is optional, but it gives it a nice nutty flavor. Okay, and probably that's about 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast. Okay, and I'm just going to blend this up real quick and pour it into a container and have it ready to go when our pizza gets out of the oven. These look good. They look really, really good. It's really hot. Ooh, it's really hot. It's really hot. Okay, pizzas are out of the oven, and I did go ahead and add my cheese sauce for about the last 3 or 4 minutes of baking, and I'm just going to hit these both with a little bit of fresh basil and parsley, and I am going to try a bite because I am starving. But how beautiful do those look? They look so good. I can't wait to try this. Okay. Let me see if I can chop a piece off of here without burning myself and burning my mouth. It smells amazing though. It is perfect. So satisfying and took hardly any time to put together. You could pair this with a little bit of a side salad. Perfect weeknight family meal. I'm gonna go sit down and enjoy this, and I will see you with the next recipe. Okay, this next recipe is a favorite for vegans and non-vegans, and it also happens to be a weight loss friendly recipe. So if that's something you're looking for, this is it. You have to try this one. And this is an enchilada casserole or an enchilada bake. Now it just has a few ingredients, but they're all really macro friendly. And the cheese sauce is what really makes it good, because it's so full of flavor, but it's nut free and low fat. So it's just made with potatoes, a little bit of sweet potato, and some seasoning and nutritional yeast, along with some brine from the pickled jalapeno jar, which gives it that really good queso flavor. So we just have a few ingredients: corn tortillas, enchilada sauce, black beans, sweet potatoes, and spinach, because you've got to sneak some greens in there for the family anytime you can. So super easy, comes together really quick. And I like to just start with pouring some enchilada sauce on the bottom of my casserole dish. And this is just a regular 9 by 13 casserole dish. And just kind of swish that around there so it's nice and even on the bottom. And I just have 2 cans of black beans. You could certainly cook those from scratch, but I wanted to show you the super easy version of this. It's so tasty. I really hope you'll check this one out. So my black beans and my sweet potatoes, I just seasoned with a little bit of salt, black pepper, cumin, garlic powder, and onion powder. And of course, I'll write out the recipe in the measurements that I used in the description box. So yeah, it's so easy. Just some organic corn tortillas. Now you could use flour if you like, but enchiladas are traditionally made with corn tortillas, and I think it just gives it such a unique flavor. So I really like to go the traditional route and use the corn tortillas. So I'm just going to layer in some of the other ingredients on top of my tortillas. Just take a couple spoons of the seasoned sweet potatoes. And one of the reasons why I like to use sweet potatoes here is because it gives the casserole a real richness that you would get from a really cheesy enchilada. You know what I mean. The traditional ones are usually full of cheese. So this gives it a really nice texture, really nice cheesy texture there. Just go in with that. And that was just 1 large sweet potato that I baked and mashed up without the skin. Okay, and I'm going to go in with just a layer of spinach. And this is just some fresh spinach that I rinsed off. This is a really affordable meal too. And you can go in with any kind of greens here or vegetables. Cauliflower chopped up fine is really good in here too. So we'll go in with a layer of the spinach and then spoon in some of our black beans. And this makes a lot. So this is a really good one to meal prep or have in the freezer or the refrigerator ready to go. So what I will probably do with this is I'll probably end up eating this for lunches for the rest of the week, or maybe easy weeknight dinners. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. So a little bit more enchilada sauce. And I'm going to go in with some of my creamy cheese sauce here. And look how rich and creamy that is. You would not believe that it is low fat. It is, I'm telling you, it is so good and tastes so rich and creamy. Nobody's going to know that we're keeping it low fat. And that gives you a little bit of extra room for some vegan sour cream and some avocado on top of this, which is how I like to eat it. So I'm going to go in with another layer of our corn tortillas. And these just kind of overlap, so about 6 per layer, depending on the size of your tortillas there. This is equaling out to about 6 a layer. So some more enchilada sauce. And I'm just covering up those tortillas there. I have another can of this. I may use a little bit of that other can, but we'll see. And I'm going to go in with the rest of my black beans. Oh, this is going to be good. This is going to be so good. So this will bake in the oven at 375. I have my oven preheating for about 35 to 45 minutes. And then you'll want to let it sit to kind of set up for about 10 minutes or so. It should be fine. Okay, and I'm going to go in with another layer of corn tortillas. And if you wanted to put something crunchy on top of here, some fresh shredded lettuce would be good. Some crispy air fryer onions or jalapeños would be good. I have a recipe for some crispy air fried pickled jalapeños. Those would be really excellent here. I'll have to link that recipe in the description box. They're amazing, but if you make them, plan on making a double or triple batch because you are going to want to eat them all in one sitting. They are so good. Okay, and then the rest of my enchilada sauce. All right, I think that might be just enough. I'm going to spread that around a little bit with the back of my spoon here. Make sure my tortillas are all covered because you don't really want them to dry out. Now you could cover this with some aluminum foil to prevent that, but I don't think it's really necessary. So we'll just skip that. I try not to use too much aluminum foil or plastic wrap or that kind of thing here. Just trying to save a little money. You know, groceries have gotten so outrageously expensive. So I'm just going to top this off with our cheese sauce. And you could also just use, to make this super easy on yourself, you could just use a vegan shredded cheddar. Use what you have. All right, and I'm just going to kind of spread that around. Make sure everybody's nice and juicy. Oh, I can't wait for this. This is going to be really good. Okay, so have a huge mess here to clean up. But I'm going to pop this in the oven. I think I'm going to take the dog for a walk and just kind of chill a little while it bakes. Ooh, look at that. Oh my God. It smells amazing too. I cannot wait to dive into this. But as you can see, it is still bubbling hot with ooey, gooey, cheesy goodness. So I'm going to let it just hang out here, let it set for about 10 or 15 minutes, and it will be dinner time. To try to get a neat piece out of here. Oh, that looks really good. Honestly, you guys, I did not feel like waiting. I did not feel like waiting the full 15 minutes. So it looks like it could have used a little bit longer to set up, but that's okay. We're hungry here, so we are ready to give it a try. I'm just going to put a little bit of avocado on top and a little bit of this vegan sour cream, which is totally optional. Put that there, just a little dollop. And I am going to give this a try. I'm going to try to do that without completely burning my mouth. Oh, it smells amazing. Get a little bit of sour cream. I really hope you'll give this one a try. That sweet potato in there, it just gives such a creamy richness to the casserole. It is so good. A little bit of spice from the queso and the enchilada sauce. Now you can go with mild or spicy enchilada sauce. All they had at the store today was mild, and when that's the case, I like to add just a little bit of cayenne pepper, give it a kick, but that's optional. So I am going to go sit down and enjoy this. Mr. Tony says he would also like some. Looked really good, so we are going to have our dinner and call it a night. Again, I really appreciate you guys watching. Thanks so much, and I will see you next time. Bye.